My heart beat faster. It was hard to hide my anticipation. I was getting dressed to meet my lover and doing so in front of my unsuspecting husband. This only increased my excitement. From the excitement before the meeting, the anticipation of his kisses and penetration, I almost came, preparing for our date. I could barely put on regular white panties and a bra. I wanted so badly to wear the new, playful lingerie I bought at Victoria's Secret, but I couldn't explain to Harvey why I was wearing it to work. 15 years after marrying Harvey Shelton, I returned to work. I had a part-time job at a small art gallery in Soho, New York. I once worked there right after graduating from college with a degree in art history. Now I was back working there on Tuesdays and Wednesdays from 9 to 4. Our children were teenagers. Our daughter was 12, our son was 14, and I didn't need to be home with them all the time. Harvey was the principal of the local high school and could always intervene in case of any emergency. Because I had so much free time, I got a job last summer. I was an administrator. She sat at a small table and directed everyone who came into the gallery to the staff who could best help them. I had been working there for about a month when Eric came into the gallery. He was a handsome young man, in my mid-20s by my estimate, with a boyish charm that caught my attention. His muscular figure and deep blue eyes awakened something deep inside me. I couldn't take my eyes off him. I watched him as he wandered around the gallery, partly because it was part of my job, but mainly because I was drawn to his almost feline grace and physical attractiveness. His thick chest and narrow waist were accentuated by a tight t-shirt. You could even see the outline of his pectoral muscles in it. When he caught my eye, his smile was as bright as direct sunlight and made me blush like a schoolgirl. Perhaps he noticed my embarrassment, and his smile grew even wider as he approached me. "Oh my God," I said to myself, "he's gorgeous. He looks like a young Viking." He really was a Viking because when he introduced himself, he had a Scandinavian name, Eric Hansen. He was an artist, one of many who rented space in one of the old loft buildings in the area. He tried to sell some of his works, or at least put them up for consignment. The person in charge of this part of the business was absent at the time. I don't know why, but I told him that the few paintings he brought were not enough for us to take in his performance. He begged me to come and see what he had in the studio. There were too many, and some of them too large, to bring to us for inspection. I had to go to his studio to see more of his work. Although it was not my responsibility, I easily agreed to his invitation. Without admitting to myself why I wanted to get to know him better, I said that I would visit him after work. I called Harvey at his office. This is how our conversation went. "Hey, honey, you and the kids are having dinner by yourself tonight." "No, nothing special at work." No, several new boutiques have opened nearby, and they are having huge sales. Maybe I'll spend some of your hard-earned money." "No, I won't stay in town too late." "Don't worry, I'll be careful. I love you. Bye." I hung up and sat down, wondering why I had lied to my husband. I've never done this before. Why didn't I tell him that I was going to the artist's studio to look at his paintings? What was I trying to hide? I realized why when Eric answered the door when I knocked. He was bare-chested, wearing only tight shorts that outlined every muscle of his thick thighs. I couldn't say a word when he greeted me. "Irina," he said, "I was afraid you wouldn't come. I wasn't sure you were really serious about looking at what I had." I just stood there. Come in, come in. Sorry for the informality. I don't have air conditioning, and it's so hot in here." I still couldn't move. He extended his hand, and I took it. He pulled me into the door and closed it behind me. "You didn't come here to look at my work, did you, Irina?" I didn't answer him. "You can't see very well what I have when so much hair covers your eyes." He reached out and brushed away a lock of hair that had fallen into my eye. I trembled. "I saw the way you looked at me in the gallery today. We both know you didn't come here to look at my paintings. You are a beautiful woman, Irina. You are a little older than I usually prefer, but you radiate sensuality, which attracts me, and these are world class." I wish I could say it was good. It wasn't just good, it was incredible. When I left him to catch the 8:52 train home, my feelings were in turmoil. What have I done? I just had sex with a man I barely knew. More and better sex in a short time than I've ever had with my husband. What about my husband, Harvey? What about my children? I just jeopardized my marriage. Love or lust? Who cares? It was wrong. I sat on the train for the 40-minute ride, these questions and many others swirling around in my head. I felt guilty when I thought about my husband, the man I had loved for so many years, the man I still loved. I didn't want to lose him. I still loved him and my children. I didn't want to change that. I would show them that I still love them and be especially gentle and caring when taking care of them. And Eric, guilt or not, I knew I wanted more of what he had given me that afternoon. I knew I shouldn't see him again. I knew it was a forbidden pleasure, but I couldn't resist the joy of it. What did he awaken in me? It was almost 10 o'clock when I entered the house, almost our usual bedtime. Harvey was just getting ready to go to bed. Take your time getting undressed, love, I told him, and don't put on your pajamas. I'm going to make love to you until you beg for mercy. Wow, he exclaimed, what's gotten into you? Nothing yet, honey, but as soon as I get out of the shower, I hope it will be you. Usually, in our love, I was the recipient of his passion, but today I was the aggressor. Ooh, he said, who are you and what have you done to my wife? I'm still the same, honey. I just wanted to show you how much I love you. I just wanted to make sure you'd stick with me. Don't worry, I won't let you go, he said. My only concern is that if you keep this up, you might kill me first. No, I won't kill you, I declared and pressed myself against him. I love you too much. I fell asleep in my husband's arms, and I dreamed of Eric. He was on my mind throughout the weekend and into Tuesday morning when I returned to work. I spent the entire afternoon of Tuesday and Wednesday looking at the gallery door, but he never showed up. I had no way to contact him. He didn't have a phone. I fidgeted in my chair, walked around the gallery, and I needed to see him. I needed him. I tried my dose. Now I need more. I needed to see him again. When I got home Wednesday night, I told Harvey that the gallery needed me for Thursday. Of course, he didn't object. Dear, reliable, trusting Harvey. I loved him, but the next morning I left at the usual time. At 9 in the morning, I knocked on Eric's door. Nothing happened. I knocked again, harder, and a third time, and the door opened. Eric stood in front of me, a sleepy Apollo in his shorts. Ah, he muttered. Hi, Irina, he said, striding away, scratching his butt. His greeting was as if my presence was the most natural thing in the world. He turned and, leaving me standing in the corridor, continued on his way. Come in, he called over his shoulder. He shrugged off his underpants and tossed them aside as he continued walking. Oh God, even his ass is beautiful, I thought as I walked inside. I closed the door and stood there silently. Then I gasped as he walked over to what looked like a janitor's bucket and peed in it, still talking over his shoulder to me. The toilet and shower for the residents on this floor are at the end of the corridor, and I don't have a robe to wear on the way there. He turned on the tap above the bucket, rinsed his face, and, taking a bottle from the shelf above the bucket, rinsed his mouth with its contents. He then turned to me and leaned against the bucket, naked, his ass resting against the bucket. That's what you're here for, isn't it, Irina? I still haven't said a word, but yes, that's what I'm here for. We had sex. I promise I'll be back, but I need to get home on time if we want to do this again. My husband thinks I'm at work today. I need to get myself in order. Where's your shower? I told you this morning, he said, handing me a small towel at the end of the corridor. But this is a public corridor. Don't you have a robe? I told you I don't have any. I just wrap it up with a towel around your waist like me. What if I meet someone in the hallway? Just smile and keep walking. Artists live here, people expect that kind of behavior. What have I brought upon myself? I thought as I walked barefoot down the hallway, he's a poor, struggling artist living in a one-room studio. He can't even afford a robe or a second towel. He's closer in age to my son than he is to me, and we really don't have a future together. Why am I risking my marriage and family for this? I have to stop this. This is madness. Yes, it was madness, but it was divine madness. I knew I had to do it again, plus I promised him I would come back. I promised myself that this would be the last time, but I knew it wouldn't be. Halfway back to the studio, it happened. A man walked out of the door almost directly in front of me. He stood motionless, looking at my bare breasts. To hell with it, I thought, sticking out my chest and continuing to walk. Let him enjoy it, and continued to walk along the corridor to Eric's door. I don't know what came over me, but before entering, I took the towel off my waist and waved my buttocks in front of him. I laughed at my newfound bold debauchery as I bent down to pick up my clothes from the floor. I didn't know it was there until I put on my bra and felt it. It was on the underside of my left breast, a huge red spot. Damn, Eric, what have you done to me? Just marked you as my property. Your property? I don't belong to you. I have a husband, a family. You don't own me. Why did you do this to me? I cried while getting dressed. How will I explain this to my husband? Your husband is not my problem, he shrugged, and I marked you because I want you back. You're a great partner, Irina. But I promised I'd come back. Yes, but now I'm sure. Well, don't be so sure, because I'm never coming back, I screamed, slamming the door on my way out. I calmed down on the train ride home. I had to solve the first problem, how to hide the evidence of my infidelity from Harvey until the stain disappeared. The second problem, my passion, will have to wait. As it turns out, I didn't have to solve any of them. When we sat down for dinner, my 12-year-old daughter was delighted. Today, at our football match, I scored the only goal. This made our team first in the league. I called you at work, Mom, to tell you everything, but you were not there, and I had to wait until the evening. Everyone was so proud of me, they carried me on my shoulders. I froze for a moment, then looked at Harvey. He just continued eating the soup. I was glad he missed her words. My joy was premature, as I learned later when we were getting ready for bed. I put on my nightgown and sat on the edge of the bed. He was still standing in his t-shirt and shorts. How was your day at work? You usually don't work on Thursdays. Was there anything unusual? No, nothing unusual. Is that strange? After Sarah couldn't reach you at work, she called me with the news of her goal. I thought she might have called the wrong number, so I called you too. I found out that not only were you not at a place, but also that you shouldn't have been there. So where were you, Irina, and why did you lie to me about being at work? I didn't answer him. I didn't know what to say. Why did you lie to me, Irina? He continued. Why, I wonder, if you wanted to go shopping, you would have told me that, wouldn't you? Oh, but that's what you told me last week, and I believed you. You couldn't use that excuse again like that. Soon, that's why you used the job for your lies. But you were caught in a lie. Now again, why would you lie? Maybe you have a lover. My paralysis intensified. I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. I just looked at him helplessly. I saw the end of my marriage. I saw my shame. Do you have a lover, Irina? Do you love another man? Am I losing you because of another? Then the unthinkable happened. His chin trembled, and I saw a tear roll down his cheek. You don't love me anymore, Irina? Are you going to leave me? His manner has completely changed. The accuser disappeared, changed by the beggar. My strong husband suddenly begged me to assure him that I loved him and would not leave him. A wave of relief washed through my body and washed away my fear. He's afraid, I thought. He's afraid that I might have a lover and leave him. No, honey, I assured him. I'm not going to leave. I love you. I want to be your wife forever. Even when I uttered these false words, I could not bring myself to admit my infidelity. I couldn't admit my crush on Eric or my relief that I didn't have to admit my kinky behavior today. But as I said it, I knew it was true. I really loved Harvey and I really wanted to remain his wife. But at the same time, I also knew that I wanted Eric with such desperation that I could not explain to myself. I had to control the situation at home. I reached out to my husband. Come here, honey. Let me show you how much I love you. We made love. I love you, Harvey. I love you too, he said as I sat on the edge of the bed. That's why I was so afraid I was losing you. You will never lose me. I will not let you go, I assured him. That's so nice. You're so good in bed, much better than you can imagine him doing. I felt Harvey's body tense. You love him? No, he's only in your imagination. I love you. Then why? He couldn't finish the question. It's all in your imagination, honey. Are you one of those men who thinks about his wife with another man? I never knew that. Are you like that, Harvey? I felt him tense when I said this. I realized that I had hit the mark. But I don't. He began to protest. Yes, you think so. You've been thinking about it for the last 2 weeks and trying to beat him in bed. Now you think I met him on Thursdays when I said I was at work. Like today, and you like it. I think that it makes you worry more now than ever. Now have sex with me. Maybe he was trying to impress me with his masculinity. Or maybe he was excited at the thought of my affair. Or perhaps he was trying to outdo his unknown competitor. We never discussed it, not even the next morning when I was getting dressed to go to work. He was watching me. So are you going to work today? He asked. Yes, I said. I told you I would work every Thursday from now on. I looked at him, challenging him. His eyes met mine, then he gave in, his body as if shrank inside himself, and he asked, Will you return to normal time? Absolutely, my dear, and I'll be looking forward to having as good a time as last Thursday night. With that light-hearted statement, I kissed him on the cheek and went to meet my lover. I felt like I was in control of my life. At least that was the case until I stood in front of Eric's door and he opened it. He stood there in his boxers, blocking the entrance. He responded to my bright good morning with the command, Undress, Irina, and never knock on my door again if you are not undressed. But this is a public corridor, and there's a man standing over there. Yeah, it's Hector. He told me you waved your ass at him last week. He wants a better look. But, no buts, Irina, he interrupted. Take off your clothes or go home. I undressed, thinking all the time, why am I doing this? If only he weren't so handsome. I was so confident at home this morning, but here I was just a pawn, a submissive little woman of easy virtue. Why not give them a show? So I looked over my shoulder at Hector and gave him the sexiest look I could. I was full of adrenaline when I said to Eric, You knew I'd like this, didn't you? He just smiled. You know what buttons to press, don't you? I continued. The smile became wider. You want the whole world to know that I'm hot and horny for you, don't you? He laughed. Well, you got your wish, now let me get mine. He did it, again for 6 hours, just like last week. Finally, I could take a shower before going home. He told me, Hector will be waiting, give him a good show. He's the caretaker of the building, and I want to stay on his good side, so make sure I show him enough breasts and ass. So as I walked out into the hallway and back, I didn't have to worry about covering myself with that tiny towel as I exaggerated my hip movements and made my breasts bounce like rubber balls. I even did a belly dance in front of Hector and then stuck my tongue out at him before closing the door behind me. I giggled as I walked back to Eric's studio. What are you doing to me? I'm just releasing the real you, was his smug response. Later, on the train, when I had a chance to reflect on the day, I asked myself, is this the real me? I knew I was infatuated with Eric. I knew I was enjoying everything he made me do. I loved every minute of it and wanted more. And my new relationship with your husband. I loved them too. I loved him more than before. Even though I was subordinate to Eric, I wanted more power over Harvey. Really, who have I become? Several weeks passed during which my home life and my Thursday meetings became more routine. I had more and better sex in these few months than in my entire life. I was floating in the clouds. I existed in an endorphin haze, suspended between desire and satisfaction, between husband and lover. Until I got to Eric's on Thursday, and when the door opened to my naked body, I was greeted by Eric and a grinning Hector. I was so used to Hector watching me arrive that I didn't even realize that today he was inside the studio and not in the corridor. "We have a problem," was Eric's greeting as I straightened up after placing my clothes on the floor inside. "I don't have money for this month's rent." "How much do you need?" I asked. "I don't have more than $30 on me." 500, he replied, "or I must leave by 5 o'clock tomorrow." "What are you going to do?" I asked him. "You want me to leave here and go back to Minnesota? It's all up to you now," Eric replied. Hector's smile became much wider, turning into a smirk. "What do you mean?" I asked reluctantly, knowing the answer before I asked the question. "Hector says if you have sex with him once a week when you come here, it will cover the rent." "Are you crazy? Do you want to make me a woman of easy virtue to pay your rent? Do you want me to become a woman of easy virtue?" I was furious. Hector's smile disappeared. Eric just looked at me disappointed and shrugged. He then turned to Hector and said, "Here is your answer, Hector. I was hoping she would agree, but I have such luck. I will clean up what I can today and leave by tomorrow evening." "It's a shame, Irina," he told me. "I was hoping you liked coming here enough that you would do it. You're a great lover, but last week was our last time. I don't have time for you today. I need to move out. You can get dressed and go home." I stood stunned, naked and incomprehensible. Everything happened so quickly. My happy world was crumbling. One axis of my sexual existence was shaking. I was going to lose my lover. I didn't want this. I needed him. I didn't want to go back to the vanilla life I had led before. "Wait," I screamed. My anger disappeared, transformed by the inevitability of my desire. Before I could think, before I could stop myself, before I could change my mind, both men turned to look at me. "I will do it." Eric smiled. Hector smiled again. In fact, he danced for joy. This was where I belonged, where I wanted to be. This was something new for me. I rode home on the train in the evening, looking forward to telling my husband that night what he imagined I had done during the day. The story became as exciting as the action. I delayed my bedtime preparations until he was already in bed, propped up against the headboard with pillows, reading a book. I walked in wearing only the top half of a sexy nightgown. "Did your fantasy run wild today?" I asked him, climbing onto the bed and sitting on top of him. "Did you imagine that my lover had a twin brother?" I continued. The book fell to the floor. "Yes, there were two of them. Can you imagine two men in bed with me?" I continued my story of what happened today, taking advantage of my ignorant husband. Now I had power. They say that pride comes before a fall. I never really understood this phrase until the following Thursday evening. Now I know what it means to not be so proud of yourself that you don't realize that your world could fall apart around you. This is exactly what happened to me that day. I came to Eric at 9 in the morning, as usual. Hector was waiting in the corridor. I smiled happily and greeted him as I took off my clothes. "Hey, Hector, I see you're on time for rent collection. Last week was a blast. You blew me away with your horizontal mambo." I raised my hand to knock on the door. "Nobody's here," he said as I rapped my knuckles. "Nobody here?" I repeated stupidly, knocking again. "No, he's gone. Evicted. Last Friday. He left." "Left? Evicted? Where? Why?" I couldn't believe what I heard. "Yeah, evicted for non-payment of rent. Probably moved back to Minnesota." But I thought, you. "Irina, you can't be as stupid as him. Did you really think my boss could bank sex into her account? Hey, but if you liked it that much, we could go down to my office for a reintroduction." I cried while getting dressed. I could only squeeze out, "Fuck you, you lying bastard, fuck you." He laughed as I ran away. "That's exactly what I want, Irina. Why are you running away? It's a good thing I haven't put on my heels yet, otherwise I might trip and fall while running away." I couldn't contain my emotions even after I boarded the train back home. I cried quietly until I reached my destination. I spent the rest of the day mourning the loss of my lover and the pleasure he gave me. I couldn't contact him. He didn't have a mobile phone. I will miss his beautiful body and great sex. I wonder where he is now and if he misses me as much as I miss him. And that bastard Hector, after what he did to me, turned me into a woman of easy virtue to pay Eric's rent. He broke his promise. I could kill that lying bastard. Thank God Harvey never found out what was going on. But I learned otherwise before the end of the evening. Harvey was already in bed, reading as usual, when I came out of the bathroom in a flannel nightgown. "This is unusual," he said. "What's unusual?" I retorted. "Nightgown," he answered. "You've been wearing sexy things on Thursdays for the last few months. Aren't you going to tell me about what you did at work today?" "No, not today, Harvey. It wasn't a good day." "Not a good day, huh? Then let me tell you what I imagined. I imagined you were having a really bad day. I imagined that when you arrived at work, there was no one there. The door was closed and you could come in. I imagined that you loved your job so much and was so disappointed that you left there crying." A chill ran down my spine. Do you remember what my brothers do? The sudden change of topic took me by surprise. What? No. Yes, something to do with real estate. They run a property management company. They manage buildings, commercial buildings, apartment buildings, lofts, buildings owned by corporations, shareholders who cannot manage the buildings they own. My blood ran cold. There are about 24 large companies like this in New York City, and they have a sort of informal community that meets once a month to discuss various business issues. For example, scams from unscrupulous tenants, security problems, unusual cases. I started to tremble. Did you know that many commercial buildings now have security cameras in elevators and hallways, like in hotels? They say it helps prevent break-ins. About 2 months ago, one of the guys brought in a CD of a woman running almost naked down the hallway in one of his buildings. He said that she really knows how to shake her breasts and her ass. Can you imagine the surprise my brother felt when he saw this video on the TV screen in the bar of this restaurant? My blood froze. "Harvey," I croaked. "Wait," he said, "that's not all. It seems she was having sex with some artist who lived there in his studio, and the caretaker knew about it. The caretaker was clearly visible in all the videos in the hallway. Did you know that now you can shoot videos through the wall? Well, not really through walls, but they are drilling a hole and running a fiber optic cable to record everything that happens on the other side. With the help of the caretaker, they did this last Thursday. Do you want to see the recording, Irina?" "Nope," I moaned. "Fine." He said, "I'd be embarrassed to show you this. Can you believe she was with 2 guys at the same time? It was the naughtiest thing I've ever seen, more than I could have imagined." Then he turned and left the room. No accusations, no yelling, no questions, nothing. No talking over the weekend. Nothing but the bare essentials for the next 5 days. I didn't know what to expect, and of course, I didn't want to bring up the topic. I was served with divorce papers at work on Tuesday. "It didn't take you long to get them ready," I greeted him when I got home. "I had months to prepare for this, and you made it so easy for me. I suspected something was going on that night when you came back late because you were shopping. You were all over me, and the guilt was written all over your face. I just wasn't sure what exactly was going on, so I played with you. And the next Thursday, for God's sake, Irina, you came back with a red spot on your chest. You really thought I was. Didn't notice or believed your story about my imagination. I just decided to wait until I had solid evidence before taking action. I wanted more leverage in our divorce case. And oh boy, I have it." "But Harvey, after all these years together." "Yes, all these years together, and what did they mean when you became a woman of easy virtue to pay his rent? No, Irina, look at the documents. Accept irreconcilable differences, and you will receive 20,000. In one amount, enough to start a new life, that's all. Move somewhere far away from us, or I'll file for divorce for cheating, and your parents, friends, and the whole world will get copies of the DVD. I took the money and my sadness for what I had done and left the world I had destroyed. After leaving home, Irina understood that she would have to start a new life from scratch. She rented a small apartment on the outskirts of the city, away from everyone she knew. $20,000 was quickly disappearing, and she needed to figure out how to make a living. Irina returned to her passion, art. She got a job at another art gallery, this time trying not to attract too much attention to herself. In the first months of her new life, Irina felt empty. She lost her family, her husband, and the stability to which she was accustomed. Every morning when she got up for work, she was haunted by memories of Harvey and the children. Every time she passed by the mirror, she saw a woman who betrayed her loved ones for the sake of a fleeting passion. Gradually, she began to realize that her attraction to Eric was just a way to escape her routine and feel alive. At the gallery, she met Mark, a middle-aged artist who was looking for recognition. Unlike Eric, Mark was a mature and calm person. He saw in Irina something more than just an attractive woman. He valued her as a person, was interested in her opinion, and often invited her to his exhibitions. One evening, after the gallery closed, Mark invited Irina to dinner. She was hesitant at first, but then agreed, deciding that she needed to move on. Over dinner, they talked about life, art, and what excites them. Mark talked about his past, how he also lost his family, but managed to find the strength to start over. His story inspired Irina, and she began to understand that her life was not over yet, that she could have many new opportunities and hopes ahead. Several months passed, and Irina and Mark's relationship became closer. She began to trust him with her innermost thoughts and feelings, and he, in turn, supported her in everything. He helped her understand her mistakes and taught her to forgive herself. Gradually, Irina began to understand that her past is not what should determine her future. One evening, Mark invited Irina to his exhibition, which became a significant event for him. Irina watched with excitement as people admired his work and felt proud of him. After the exhibition, they went for a walk around the city at night. Mark stopped at a small cafe and invited her to come in for a cup of coffee. In a cozy atmosphere, with quiet music, they talked about the future. Mark admitted that he was in love with her and would like to spend his whole life with her. Irina, touched by his words, realized that she too had found something special in him, that she was no longer alone. Several years have passed. Irina and Mark got married and began to build their new life together. Irina became a mother again, and her new family helped her heal old wounds. She continued to work at the gallery, but now in the role of manager. She used her experience and knowledge to help young artists, support them, and give them the opportunity to find their path in art. Sometimes Irina remembered her old life, Harvey, and the children she had lost. She knew that she would never be able to correct her mistakes, but she believed that by changing and becoming a better person, she could at least partially redeem herself. Now she had a new family, a new life, and a new chance at happiness. She learned to appreciate every moment, every day, and thanked fate for the opportunity to start all over again. Irina's story became a lesson for her, a reminder of how important it is to appreciate what you have and to be honest with those you love. She learned to forgive herself and move on, despite all the difficulties and mistakes. In the end, she found her place in the world and found the harmony and happiness that she had been looking for so long. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think, click to the next one. Click to the next one.